In the heat of a young nation trying to find its feet, a man from Ahmedabad dared to look up, not to conquer the heavens for glory, but to use the vastness above to solve problems below, for farmers, fishermen, and classrooms across India. This is the story of Vikram Sarabhai, the quiet visionary who planted the seeds of India's space program. Born on August 12, 1919, into a progressive industrial family in Ahmedabad, Vikram Sarabhai grew up in a home where literature, politics, and science mixed freely. Their parents ran a Montessori-style school. Their home, called Retreat, hosted national leaders and thinkers. Those early encounters with ideas and a deep curiosity for how things work shaped a boy who would later bridge industry, science, and public service. Sarabhai left India for Cambridge, where he completed his natural sciences tripos and later a PhD in cosmic ray physics in 1947. Returning home, he worked with C.V. Raman and began field work across India measuring cosmic rays and the upper atmosphere. But Sarabhai's scientific impulse was never ivory tower alone. He wanted research to matter to society. In 1947, at a modest corner of Ahmedabad and with support from local trusts, Sarabhai founded the Physical Research Laboratory, PRL, as a nucleus for space and atmospheric science in India. PRL would become the cradle of India's space scientists and a living example of Sarabhai's belief that institutions matter more than personalities. He didn't stop there. He helped set up the Ahmedabad Textile Industries Research Association, the Indian Institute of Management, and a host of organizations that connected research to India's needs. Vikram Sarabhai rejected the idea of chasing space feats simply for prestige. He famously argued that India did not have the fantasy of competing with superpowers to land on the moon or send humans into space. Instead, his vision was crystal clear: apply space technology to address real problems, communication for remote villages, weather forecasting for farmers, resource mapping and education through satellites. That pragmatic, people-first view became the ethical spine of India's space program. The birthplace of India's rocket launches was not a luxurious range, but a small fishing village on Kerala's coast called Thumba. In 1963, under Sarabhai's guidance, India launched its first sounding rockets from a churchyard in Thumba. The parts were transported on bicycles and bullock carts. The team worked with minimal resources but maximum resolve. That image of ambition strapped to simplicity captured Sarabhai's leadership. Build what you can now and scale it for tomorrow. Sarabhai's consistent work led to institutional milestones. He chaired the Indian National Committee for Space Research and became the first chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization's predecessor bodies. He pushed for centers focused on applications, not just rocketry, ensuring satellites would serve telecommunication, meteorology, and remote sensing needs for development. Under his stewardship, the foundations of what would become ISRO were laid. What set Sarabhai apart was how he brought different worlds together: scientists, industrialists, craft communities, and government. He combined technical depth with administrative skill and a humility that allowed experts to flourish. He encouraged experiments, tolerated failure, and insisted the performer must be emotionally attached to the project, that devotion breeds dedication. Those words were not just theory, they were the culture he created in laboratories and launch pads across India. Off the lab bench, Sarabhai's life had human warmth. He married classical dancer Mrinalini Sarabhai in 1942. Their household remained a lively intersection of art and science. Friends remember him as thoughtful, humorous, and relentlessly curious. Yet, he also carried the weight of high expectations for the nation and for himself, and worked tirelessly until his sudden death in 1971 at the age of 52. Sarabhai's footprints are visible everywhere. PRL in Ahmedabad, the Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Thiruvananthapuram, the Space Application Center, and an Indian space community organized around applications for development. He is memorialized in stamps, awards, and even a lunar crater. But perhaps the deepest legacy is cultural. An Indian space program guided by service and self-reliance rather than mere spectacle. In his final hours, Sarabhai was still at work. He spoke to a young A.P.J. Abdul Kalam, reviewing plans and designs, the very conversations that shaped India's launch vehicle programs later. Within an hour of that call, Sarabhai suffered a fatal cardiac arrest at Kovalam. The abruptness of his passing shocked the nation, but his ideas continued to guide the people and organizations he had set in motion. For a modern audience, Sarabhai's story offers two lessons. First, vision without social purpose is hollow. He insisted space must be for people, not for prestige. Second, institutions matter. By building laboratories, research schools and networks, Sarabhai ensured that India's space program would outlast any one personality. That combination of ethics and engineering is why the Chandrayaan lander, named Vikram in tribute, and India's satellite services trace back to him. Vikram Sarabhai looked at the sky and saw a tool, a way to connect villages, predict storms, teach children, and map the earth. He showed a newly independent nation how science could be both ambitious and kind, rigorous and humane. His life reminds us that the greatest discoveries are those that lift everyone a little higher. If you liked this story, watch our episode on A.P.J. Abdul Kalam to see how Sarabhai's seeds shaped a generation of Indian scientists. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell. We'll bring you another untold story next week.